Hey there folks, welcome to the channel. I'm glad you could make it because in today's episode, we're going to be making a beautiful and flavorful Italian pancetta in our ice chest. That's right. We've been testing out a product called the Cellar 12, and this particular product claims to be able to turn your regular household ice chest into a dry curing cabinet. Last week we uploaded the pork tenderloin video, and I gotta tell you, 3 weeks in the ice chest, it was absolutely magnificent. Today we're gonna be going in the opposite direction of the tenderloin. We're gonna be using a fattier cut to see how the Cellar 12 can handle it. We're gonna be using the belly to make our pancetta. Now you can also use the jowl to make guanciale. Follow the exact same recipe. I bet it's gonna be absolutely delicious. Speaking of recipe, I'm not entirely sure what direction I wanna go with this. So here in a minute, we will write the recipe out together on camera, and honestly, it just depends on how I'm feeling. I want it to be different. I want it to be flavorful. And so we'll see what we have on hand and then we'll make it happen. But regardless, you can find a link to whatever recipe we end up with in the description box below. All right, let's make pancetta.
All right, we've got ourselves a little pork belly, and my butcher has already removed the skin from it. And we're going to cut this right in half. Primarily because there's not a lot of space in our ice chest and we want small pieces. This is what we're going to use to make our pancetta. And this piece I'm going to use in a sausage recipe that we're making for Celebrate Sausage Season 6. We're going to weigh the pork belly now, and we are looking at 488 grams. I like to work in grams when it comes to adding spices, a lot more precise. It's a lot easier, actually. And so let's jot that down, 488 pancetta tessa. So when it comes to the spice profile, we're going to start with salt. Now, you can go a couple different ways with this. We're going to do a salt plus EcoCure #1. That's going to be my no-nitrite curing salt. Next, we're going to add just a touch of garlic and maybe a little onion powder, I think. I also believe I want to add some smoky notes, so let's come in with some smoked paprika. You can add chipotle powder or Calabrian pepper powder. Those are all really great ingredients. Next up, we're going to add a touch of bay leaf powder. I like the almost eucalyptus element that it brings. And then we're going to add savory. Savory is an ingredient that's going to boost the umami element in our pancetta. You can take this recipe in virtually any direction. You can make it spicy, you can make it savory, you can make it sweeter. So it just really comes down to what you want. As far as EcoCure #1, we're going to add 1%. That's the recommended amount. And EcoCure #1 has 34.4% salt. So I do want to adjust the amount of salt that we're adding so that we don't oversalt our pancetta. So I'm going to add 1.66% salt, giving us a total salt content of 2%. Here's where we get to fine-tune our flavor profile. For garlic, I want to come in a little heavier at 0.6%. Onion, we're going to come in at half, 0.3%. Smoked paprika, 0.4. Bay leaf powder, 0.15. And savory, 0.7. All right, there we go. And notice the bay leaf powder, very small amount. I don't want to overwhelm the flavor of our pancetta with that ingredient. And what I'm going to do here is just calculate the totals. There it is. All right. Now, what I did at the last second was added a little black pepper, 0.3%. So not a lot. I think that's going to be perfect. Pancetta is generally a project that doesn't take very long, which is why we're using EcoCure #1. Now, just so you know, you can omit EcoCure #1 and increase the salt content to 3%. Or you can add InstaCure #1 and put 2% salt. Really, it's up to you. And pancetta is one of those projects that can go a few different ways. You can just age it in your dry curing chamber for 7 to 10 days and then cook with it, or you can let it dry cure for 3 to 4 weeks and then be able to eat it as is, which is what we're going to be doing in this video. Here's what we're going to be working with, and I'm just going to combine all those ingredients into a small bowl and give it a stir. I think we are headed in the right direction flavor-wise. I'm very excited about this. Smoked paprika, here we go, going in. As far as the bay leaf powder, if you can grind it fresh, even better. The reason I like to use ground powder is because once your cure time is finished, you don't have to remove any of the spices, unlike using actual bay leaf where you have to remove them. So there we go. This is our savory, beautiful ingredient. Here's what the package looks like. Strong, brothy, umami, savory notes. Incredible flavor enhancer. I'll put a link in the description box so you can pick up a bag for yourself. And then this last ingredient, this is our EcoCure #1. This is a brilliant no-nitrite curing salt from the sausage maker. And before you blow up the comment section about celery powder and hidden vegetable nitrites, EcoCure #1 does not have any of that. Matter of fact, it uses antioxidants and polyphenols to cure your meat, in case you were curious. Let's give it a stir. And if you use the recipe link in the description box below, all you have to do is enter the weight of your pancetta under the box. How much do you want to make? And it's going to automatically calculate all the spices. All right, we've got our spice mix ready and our pork belly. When it comes to curing whole muscles, there are several different techniques. You have a wet brine, a dry brine, you have something called salt boxing, and what we're going to be doing in this video is a dry brine using the equilibrium method. And all that means is that we're going to add 100% of the spice mix to our pork belly. It's the reason why we had a very precise recipe at the very beginning. We want all of those flavors into that pork belly, so we're going to make sure that we coat all sides, top, bottom, all the edges, and then we don't want to leave anything behind. Curing your meat in this way is by far the most precise, with very little room for error, and you use the least amount of spices, which is absolutely brilliant. Notice that we are completely coated, all sides, no question about it. What we need to do now is measure the thickness. That lets us know how long this needs to hang out in our refrigerator. You're going to measure the thickest part of your pork belly. In our case, it looks pretty uniform, and I'm calculating roughly about 1 inch. So this is going to be a very quick cure time. We're going to head over to genuineideas.com, where we are going to access the brining calculator. We're going to go to brining time, and the only reason we're here is to see how long this needs to hang out in our refrigerator. That's it. This has nothing to do with the recipe, only the brining time. So we're going to put 1 inch. We're going to make sure that it's marked as flat, like a brisket, and it tells us 1.3 days. It also recommends to add an additional 20% to the time, which brings it to 1.5 days. In my case, we're just going to round that up to a proper 2 days. When you're curing using the equilibrium method, you can't over-cure your meat because remember, you're adding a very specific amount of salt and spices. And so if you happen to go over your target, so in our case it's 2 days, let's say you forget about it and you come back a week later or 2 weeks later, you're totally fine. Matter of fact, it's better to go longer than it is to go shorter. But in our case, 2 days is what our target is. And notice I like to write everything on my bag. So here it says we have a 1 inch thick pork belly, 2 days in the refrigerator. So it's going to be going in on February the 16th, coming out February the 18th. I'm going to vacuum seal this, but if you don't have a vacuum sealer, you can put it in a Ziploc bag. Just try to get as much air out of it. And there we go. Now that it's vacuum sealed, we can place this into the refrigerator. And granted, it's not going to be in there too long, but what I like to do during the course that it is in there, so in the next 48 hours, I like to massage the spices onto the meat, just like I'm doing here. And so if there's any, dry patches or areas where there's a heavy buildup of seasonings, you can rub it out, do it on each side, moisten those spices up, and just really allow those flavors to penetrate that meat. It's going to be absolutely amazing. And so that's normally what I do over the course of, in this case, 2 days, not a big deal. Into the refrigerator it goes, and now we wait. 48 hours later, this is what our pork belly looks like. It has fully cured, and it's now time to move on to the next step. So the next step is all about drying. So I'm going to be using dry curing wraps. We talk about them a little bit on this channel. They are absolutely amazing, incredibly versatile casings. Now, these are not edible, so they will be removed after the project is finished, but putting a casing on your meat project helps regulate the way that it dries. One thing I do want to add is that you don't need to wrap it 5 or 6 times. That's actually going to be counterproductive. It prohibits it from drying. So if you're going to be using wraps like this, just make sure to not overwrap it. 1 to 2 wraps is totally acceptable. If you get into 3+ wraps, then you are going to have a problem. All right, there we go. This top part I'm going to fold down. The bottom part I'm going to fold on the other side. And that's it. Being that this is going to hang, I'm going to tie it off. And I am going to thread some butcher's twine right at the very top and create a hanging spot. That's the stuff right there. All right. One thing you don't want, no matter if you're using a wrap or a casing or whatever, is air pockets. So we do want to take a sausage pricker and prick this all over. So it's going to do 2 things. It's going to help with the drying, and it's also going to remove any air pockets. You do want to make sure that whatever pricker you use has been sanitized. You don't want to introduce bad bacteria to your muscle. Let's weigh it, and it looks like we are at 506 grams total. So I'm going to write that weight down. And like I said earlier, you could take this a couple of different ways. If you just want a very short cure time, 7 to 10 days in your curing box, absolutely perfect. It'll develop flavor, but you will have to cook the product. Or you can let it cure a little bit longer, 3 to 4 weeks like we're going to do here, and the end product can be eaten as is. No cooking required. You could just serve it up on a charcuterie platter or, wrap vegetables in it or whatever you want. And if you're looking for a target weight loss, anything between 30 and 35% is pretty acceptable. All right, being that we're going to be putting our meat in a very humid environment, mold will more than likely grow, and what we want to do is control the type of mold that grows on the meat. I'm using a mold culture called Mold 800, but any mold culture will work. Mold 600 is incredibly popular as well. We added about a teaspoon of our mold culture. We're now adding some dextrose and a pinch of salt. And the reason I'm doing that is so that I can create a stable mold culture that can be stored in the refrigerator for up to 60 days. So now once I put it into a spray bottle, I now have this mold culture ready for future projects. All I've got to do is, in a minute, we're going to spray down our pancetta, but I could store it in the fridge for 2 months, not a problem. Okay, everything now is going to go into our home ice chest. We're using a 45-quart Arctic ice chest. And just so you know, if you want to cold smoke this before you put it into your ice chest, that would be absolutely brilliant. And if you do, you don't need a mold culture because smoke is a natural mold deterrent. It's the original way to preserve meat. Just cold smoke it for a long time. But in our case, we are not going to be smoking it, so I am going to spray that down on all sides. And this is such a great way to apply your mold culture because you can effectively coat the entire muscle without using a lot of product. And being that our culture now has dextrose and salt added, we can just store it in the refrigerator, and so you don't have to worry about tossing out what you don't use. Absolutely perfect. Okay, notice we have a tenderloin in there. Well, that project has already seen its completion. We're going to be adding 2 more muscles in the next couple of days. And at this point, all we do is wait. Well, 21 days have passed. Let me just kind of show you what the Cellar 12 looks like. This is the outside unit. This is what controls the temperature. You can adjust the temperature right there. And we've got it currently set to 55 Fahrenheit, and it is 55 Fahrenheit. As far as the hoses and the tubes, all of those enter in through the ice chest through the drain, and that drain hole is 3/4 inch. As far as the humidity goes, we have been averaging a fairly high humidity. Notice that it is 96% right now. I think the average humidity that this has been keeping is between 92 and 94%. And so we're going to see if that has become a problem because generally pretty high humidity can be an issue when you're dry curing meat. But we also have a decent amount of airflow in there. So we're going to see how that plays out here in just a second. Really loving the idea that I could take the ice chest and put meat in it. And so far our results have been pretty favorable. We did add a copa and a pork loin. And the pork loin should be done hopefully next week. We'll see what happens. I did double up on the sticks because of the weight. And this right here, this is the inside unit, and this is where that airflow is coming from. Decent amount of airflow circulating inside this box. All right, let's take a look at that pancetta. Beautiful looking mold coverage. And this is what you can expect when you use a mold culture. When I give it a squeeze, I gotta tell you, it feels good. Feels nice, uniformly dried, which is always encouraging. All right, let's get this into the other room, close down the ice chest. And at this point, you can open it up and then eat it. What I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and weigh it so that you can see what kind of weight loss we had within 3 weeks. We dried for 21 days, and our total dried weight is 340 grams. So when we take 340 divided by the starting weight, which is 506, subtract it from 1, multiply by 100, we could see that our total weight loss is 32.8%. Now we have a shelf-stable product that can be eaten as is. I'm going to remove the casing because, like I said earlier, not edible, but the mold is edible. So if you do happen to use a casing that is edible, you can eat it just like that. But that mold does penetrate the casing, as you can see right here, and works its way into the meat, which is going to still give it that flavor. It's not going to be as strong as if you were to eat the casing with the mold on it, but you're still going to get it, and it's going to be absolutely beautiful. Incredible looking finish right here. Love the spice coating on both sides. It smells wonderful. I'm going to tell you right now, the mold coupled with the aged pork belly and the spices, incredibly aromatic. Let's give it a slice and see what it looks like on the inside. Moment of truth. Nice. Okay. Wow. Beautiful. That is a gorgeous looking cut. Loving how this dried. This looks great. All right. Let's put it on the slicer and see how it tastes.
we go. We've got our pancetta. It's been drying for 21 days inside of our home ice chest using the Cellar 12. And remember, this is the second project that we're pulling out of our ice chest using that particular unit. The first one was a pork tenderloin, and if you missed that video, spoiler alert, it came out freaking awesome. And just looking at what I've got here in front of me, this is ridiculous. Look at that, perfectly dried, edge to center. It should be very, very tender. Look at that. Oh, that's perfect. And the trick, if you're going to eat it like this, without cooking, is to slice it incredibly thin. If you're going to cook it, you could slice it a little bit thicker, but the way we're going to eat it here today, this is going to be perfect. And the smell is just intoxicating. Wow, we left the spice coating on, so you've got the savory, the garlic, the smoked paprika, not to mention the mold 800. So mold 800 is a combination of molds. You have Penicillium nalgiavense and Penicillium candidum. So you're getting this beautiful mix of mushroomy, cheesy, slightly sweet, a little floral, all coming from the outside of it. And it's pairing really well with the spice profile that we used. Let's just give it a taste and see how we did. I'm going to go in for a little tender bite here, going down. That's incredible. I don't know why this continues to blow my mind, but I am absolutely shocked as to the results coming out of that ice chest. I just don't expect that. And this is unbelievable. In my opinion, the way that we seasoned this pork belly is absolutely spot on. When I eat this, I still very much feel that the pork is the star and everything else is just accenting the pork. There's not one particular ingredient in here that's overwhelming the flavor. Let me just come in for one more bite. Man, that's good. The salt level's perfect. And I'm glad we adjusted the salt before we added the EcoCure, because otherwise I think it might be too salty. The fat is very flavorful. It's creamy, kind of melts in your mouth when you eat it. I am picking up a subtle smoky element from the meat. Could be from the smoked paprika, probably is. A little bit of that garlic. And what's so interesting is that as I'm processing what I just ate, all of these unique flavor compounds are starting to bloom on my tongue. It's umami, it's sweet, it's savory, it's got these incredible brothy elements that are all accenting the pork. And that primarily comes from the savory ingredient that we added at the beginning. It just makes everything that you added to burst with flavor. It's absolutely incredible. And all of that deliciousness is basically just half the story. The rest of the story took place in our ice chest. This dried for 3 weeks. And during that time, slowly drying, aging, maturing, flavor compounds are being developed. We also have mold growing on the outside. The mold is going to bring its own flavor and aroma to the final product. And mold serves multiple functions in charcuterie. Not only does it protect the outside from bad molds, but it also helps to break down proteins and form amino acids. And amino acids literally equate to flavor. And so you have a complexity of flavor just by itself in this pork belly. You couple that with the way that we spiced it, and you have something that is just absolutely incredible. Wow, that's good. That is so good. Okay, I consider this a success. And so far, the Cellar 12, the unit that we used to turn our ice chest into a dry curing cabinet, by my count, is 2 for 2. 100% success in the pork tenderloin, 100% success in the pancetta. I'm loving the spice profile too, so if you want a recipe for what we made today, check the description box for a link to today's recipe. I would say this is a definite must make. Incredibly flavorful, super balanced, delicate notes of savory, umami, a little smoky, all accenting the pork in a beautiful way. Absolutely delicious. And look, if you're just getting started in the world of dry curing meats, the pancetta, especially the pancetta tessa, where you don't have to do anything to it, is a great place to start. It's very easy to make. The cure time is relatively short, and the success rate is incredibly high. And the reason the success rate is so high is because the pancetta tends to be a little bit fattier than most of the other cuts, and that interwoven fat helps protect the meat, slow down the drying, and the end results, depending on your recipe. If you follow this recipe, it's going to be absolutely amazing. But if you have any questions, or if you're nervous about a particular issue, or if you have concerns that we didn't really address in today's video, leave me a comment in the comment section below. We'll see if we could talk about it. The one thing you are going to need, though, in this craft is a dedicated dry curing cabinet, unless, of course, you have a basement or cellar that has a 55 Fahrenheit temperature with a 75 or 80% humidity. In that case, all you've got to do is hang your meat in your basement or cellar, and you're good to go. But if you're like the rest of the world, a dedicated dry curing cabinet that can kind of hold those parameters is essential for this craft. And I got to admit, the Cellar 12 is blowing my mind. It is exceeding my expectations. We are currently 2 for 2. Both projects have dried beautifully. We have 2 more in there. They should be coming out in the next 2 to 3 weeks, I would imagine. And if you want to see the results of those projects and get the full review video on the Cellar 12, be sure to hit that subscribe button and that notification bell. In the meantime, I'm going to put a link to the Cellar 12 in the description box below in the event you want to check it out for yourself. There'll also be a discount code. If you happen to buy one, you could save a couple bucks off your order. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. If you have any questions about the Cellar 12, about today's recipe, leave them in the comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, take a quick second out of your busy day and smash that thumbs up button. Thanks a lot for being here. We'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye. You know, I have made a lot of different versions of pancetta, but this particular recipe has got to be my favorite. Wow.